Hey, welcome
Okay.
back. You starting again?
No, it's fine.
Welcome back to the Really Good Podcast,
Yeah, episode 3, I think.
episode 3. And this time we're talking about documentaries. So
It's good ones. Okay
yeah.
ones. Actually, I think all my ones are ones I actually probably liked. I don't think. Oh, no, I have one okay one.
Do you have any that you wouldn't recommend? Is the thing.
Oh, shit.
So I think generally we've been recommending stuff so far.
Yeah. No, actually. Oh, I just remembered another one. No, they're all. I mean, there's some I wouldn't recommend if you cannot watch certain things.
Yeah.
Like, they're all pretty heavy, I think. But
Okay,
I
sure.
don't think I've ever seen like a properly. Oh, I do want to watch. Okay, yeah. Probably the one that was like I didn't need to watch that. That was stupid.
Mhm.
Um, was Big Picture or something like that. The Big Picture.
What was that?
Which is about dyslexia, and it was on like my university was showing it,
Yeah.
and it was I think like 40 minutes long. It wasn't very big, very long, and it was just a lot of very rich adults like lawyers and CEOs and all these people talking about how they had dyslexia and they overcame it, and now they're very successful with really uplifting music playing in the background.
Right.
And it was just over and over again. It showed like archival footage of them when they were younger, and like dyslexia is difficult. Like it's definitely can be disabling. It's just it was the same group of people,
Yeah.
just um, yeah, like white rich adults that were very like classically stereotyped successful
Right.
careers.
Yeah.
And I wish they just showed like more students or more people that had just learned to live with it and had gone into other areas of life. I don't know. It was shown a very
So they just
one
got very
aspect one.
typically like successful.
Yeah. Like
Right.
now look at me, I'm a big CEO person. It's like, what if you
Right.
don't
Yeah.
want to be that? And I
Hmm.
just thought it didn't really go anywhere. It was just the same formula for each. Like it was like a talking head interview, and then yeah, this big orchestral music all the time, and it wasn't super
Yeah.
creative. I think there's some really creative ones on my list.
Okay.
So that one wasn't interesting to me. If you're interested in dyslexia, then sure,
So you're not
but
recommending that one.
no,
Okay.
stand with that. Are there any you wouldn't recommend?
Um. Okay. Let me see. I think no. All the ones I've got, I've actually had some kind of reaction to it. There's definitely ones that I've got in my list of notes here that just definitely have um good things about them, bad things about them, um, and I think the best documentaries just have kind of a not necessarily shocking climax to them, but just something that makes sense for the documentary to be made, so that it kind of ends in a satisfying way,
Yeah,
in a way that makes you
that makes
remember it,
sense.
whether or not that's something negative or positive.
So some kind of story or just some resolve
Yeah.
in some way.
Um, yeah. So maybe we should start with talking about the Andy Kaufman
Oh yeah,
documentary, since that's probably the most recent thing we've seen. We've
yeah,
both seen.
yeah.
Um,
What were your feelings on it?
yeah. So it's pretty crazy. It's
Yeah.
pretty out there. Like, um, yeah. So I guess it's essentially is about Jim Carrey played Andy Kaufman in Man on the Moon, which came out in the 90s, which is basically a biopic of the comedian Andy Kaufman. And he stayed in character for the duration of filming, and this whole process of filming was documented by Andy Kaufman's girlfriend, his real life girlfriend.
Oh, that's who it was. Okay, I didn't realize.
Yeah, it does say it in the documentary,
Hmm.
if you listened.
Okay, well, okay. Personal
Uh,
facts. Wait, so did he
yeah.
stay in person in character even like at home? I couldn't remember because
Um,
there were some shots when he was definitely just talking as Jim Carrey and talking about playing this character. I think he definitely it
yeah, I
went out of
think
character sometimes.
possibly there was nothing really outside of the film lot, so it's hard to say.
There's a bit where he's at home after he did the thing with the wrestling, and it's on actual news.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's talking about that as an actor,
Mm.
like saying how it's good for the film or something like that.
Okay.
But which was also really, yeah, I love how that was also very Andy Kaufman-esque to do that in the
Yeah.
first place. It
And
was interesting.
you know, if you don't know, the kind of reason that is Andy Kaufman-esque is because Andy Kaufman had kind of, I don't know, like an identity crisis or something. Like he just his style of comedy was so kind of like uncommon, I guess, at the time.
Yeah.
That he seemed very outlandish. You could never really tell when he was being himself. He had this kind of foreign man character that he's very well known for,
Yeah.
where he spoke like with a really high pitched voice. So he's like, "Hello."
Don't need to do an impression. Great. It's just a voice that
And
is not
then
his.
yeah, and then he also had this lounge singer character who's like the complete opposite of the foreign man, called Tony Clifton.
With like full
It was
prosthetics and
full prosthetics. You would
completely.
not be able to tell that it was Andy Kaufman.
Yeah.
He was just like really brash and like, "I'm Tony Clifton."
Yeah. Okay.
And it
Yeah.
was like just really like angry and like
Caricature.
yeah,
They're all
complete.
caricatures, I guess. They're all
Yeah.
super extreme, like every
Yeah.
character he plays. And then there's just, I guess, sexist wrestler man. I don't really know if they ever.
Yeah, I
he
think
never
that
named
was
that
just
one.
him, but him, trying to provoke people.
Yeah, because I don't think he really. I also read an interview with his siblings. Someone like watched the film and the documentary with his siblings, and they said that he was like a really kind-hearted person.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that wasn't his real thoughts, and he was just enjoying enjoyed the.
Oh no, yeah, yeah. I completely, from what I got from the film, is that was him trying to, you know, get get a rise out of people,
Yeah.
not because a lot of the time, because Danny DeVito plays his manager in it,
Oh, yeah.
and at one point he actually says like, "Who are you trying to entertain, the audience or yourself?" And
Yeah.
it really seems like a lot of the time he's just trying to entertain himself.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know.
If you're not entertaining yourself, what's the point? I guess.
Yeah.
If you're bored by what you're doing, then what? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
If that's actually true, then I guess that's kind of commendable. But it's also like,
You're
yeah,
upsetting a lot of
he's
people
also pissing
along the
people
way.
off in the
Yeah.
process,
Yeah.
even if he doesn't mean it in quotes. Like,
Yeah. I think I just didn't understand. Like the movie didn't frame him as a particularly sympathetic person, which is what his siblings I think had a issue with, in
yeah,
that they said that it was just their issue and doesn't mean it's a bad film, but that it didn't really portray him as like a likable character. It was definitely. I think he's just too confusing to depict. I didn't get it. I didn't get
yeah,
him as a person, and the Man on the Moon didn't no, Jim and Andy, the documentary
yeah.
one, didn't clear it up that much more for
No.
me. Because then I was just confused about Jim Carrey as well.
Yeah, well, Jim Carrey seems to really be going through something. And obviously with things in his private life, it's understandable that he's probably kind of
Having a rough time.
having a rough time. Yeah, but I don't know. It seems like he's trying to like tell people something without actually saying anything. Like
Yeah.
he really just has never seemed like this. Like he's maybe had some kind of breakdown
Yeah,
and just
possibly.
no.
Which is slightly
Says,
uncomfortable.
yeah,
I'm just
seems
not
to
in
be
his
to the
bubble.
point.
Just
No.
could not understand what's going on. And I don't
Yeah.
know, because I don't know if it was the Andy Kaufman thing that did this for him, because it seemed to be all
Yeah.
intrinsically linked. And
It's
Andy,
just, I mean, this was in the 90s that he was playing
yeah.
Andy Kaufman, so, and he has not seemed like this in interviews and stuff.
I mean,
For,
have you seen a lot of interviews with him before, recently?
The only, maybe not actually,
I don't
but
think he's not been in the public eye like this recently. Like, it's
yeah,
definitely just kind of made its way onto like my newsfeed or whatever. And whereas he wasn't really making the news with these kind of interviews, so I'm assuming he didn't.
yeah.
Or they weren't. No one was talking about it until now.
Well, he did Inside the Actors Studio, which I've seen most of those.
Okay.
Where James Lipton or something.
Sure.
I can't remember his name. He just interviews actors pretty much in
Yeah.
front of like an audience of student actors.
Oh, right.
And yeah, he talked about Man on the Moon then, and he said, I wasn't Andy Kaufman. Andy was Andy Kaufman. Andy came back to do that film, and he said this in like I don't know, like 2002 or something,
Okay, so
whenever that
pretty
was made.
soon
So
after.
yeah, so he's always kind of felt that way. It's not as if he suddenly just
That's
decided,
what I couldn't
I'm
get
gonna
on
make a
board with.
documentary about this. Yeah.
Yeah, as I just couldn't relate. Well, obviously, I'm not gonna relate to it because I didn't do it, but I just
Yeah.
didn't. It lost me. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
alright, like sure.
One thing I'll just say, there's an interesting part where he gets invited. Jim Carrey gets invited to the Playboy Mansion,
Oh yeah.
and the I don't know, like the producer or whoever says, well,
Bob
Jim
Smuda?
isn't actually, yeah, Boss Smuda does it. He says, well, Jim actually isn't here right now, but could Andy come along? And he's like, yeah, no, sure, definitely. And then I think he brings, it's either Andy or Tony that he says. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, he basically
Yeah.
says that one of those is going to come along instead of Jim.
Yeah.
And so they think that Jim Carrey is going to come along as this character,
Yeah.
but it's Andy Kaufman's friend,
That's Bob Smuda. I mean, yeah.
Bob Smuda, yeah, who played Tony Clifton as well to like kind of mess with people. So sometimes Bob Smuda would go on stage as Tony Clifton, and then the real Andy Kaufman would come on stage, and everyone would be
Yeah.
like, "Who the hell is playing Tony Clifton right now?"
Yeah.
So so everyone is at this Playboy house party thinking that's Jim Carrey, but it's Bob Smuda.
Yeah.
And then Jim Carrey shows up at some point, and uh, apparently,
Tony Clifton got like the guy playing.
The guy playing Tony Clifton gets like thrown out, and
Yeah.
apparently Hugh Hefner was just kind of like went pale when he saw Jim
Yeah.
Carrey. He's like, oh god.
So yeah, it's reenacting the same thing that Andy did.
But yeah, it's
Which is
very
super interesting.
yeah,
It's just.
exactly.
It was. I think it's also. I haven't seen a documentary about a film before. Like I don't know if many of those exist. That like stands alone as its own film, and not just like it's more than just like a behind the scenes. I think it's like a proper
Yeah, it actually has
thing.
some kind of it like reflects the film in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I have actually.
No, and I think he says in a lot of it that he wishes that the behind the scenes stuff made it into the actual film because
Yeah,
that was as
yeah.
much as the acting was. It was all super interesting. It just the more I watched it, the more the more uncomfortable I got with how into it he was.
Yeah.
And like it became much more than just Andy Kaufman was a comedian and more of a he's a spiritual being that represents the unending circle of life. Like it's just like a
Yeah, it's
deity to
true.
him at some point.
Yeah.
It was
There was a lot of
really
shots of Jim Carrey kind of looking over at the horizon, sort of being like,
yeah.
Andy Kaufman is like,
He's in me,
it's
so. Oh, he's
really
gone. I've
kind of
not.
deep spiritual
Yeah.
presence. And you know, he must mean a lot to Jim Carrey if that's
Yeah.
how he feels. But
Yeah, which is cool. So, yeah, it's just when they portrayed him as more of a god than just a person and a comedian. I think watching the film at least I got like okay, well he's just a person, but he's flawed like everyone. That's like
yeah,
easier to watch. But what the documentary it just feels like it's speaking a different language to me. It feels a lot more like all knowing, all being like unliving god,
yeah,
which is really, really
he
strange.
really convinces you that kind of like Andy is either watching this happen or like
Control
yeah,
somehow.
it does really big him up.
Yeah.
Even though I mean he was like a huge deal
Yeah.
on the
I
comedy
didn't know
scene
anything about
and
this stuff
very
before.
influential. No, I didn't either.
Yeah.
I barely knew anything about Andy
No.
Kaufman before I watched it.
Yeah.
But that's a very good like double bill to watch Man on the Moon and
Yeah.
then watch that. Even, you know, however you feel about it, it's interesting. It's just so insane some of the things that happen in the
Yeah.
film because the film basically tracks everything, all the kind of pivotal moments in his career.
Yeah, and then the documentary really shows how like shot for shot it is
Yeah.
of the real things that happened. Like it's very few embellishment.
Yeah.
I guess I think the siblings issue was that it showed too little of who he actually was and more of him as like a troublemaker.
As a performer.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was still so yeah. I think definitely both of them together is worth watching.
Yeah, definitely.
That's cool. I don't know if I have any documentaries that are like about actors. I guess I have some that are like drum recreations, which is kind of what that documentary felt like. So
Yeah.
like my Scientology movie
Okay, yeah.
was pretty much completely recreation. Or
Yeah, so this is Louis Theroux.
yeah.
Who
What do you throw?
Louis Theroux? He was very
What did he
thorough.
throw? Oh. He was a different pun than I did.
I love American people trying to pronounce his name. They're
Yeah.
always like Louis Thorax.
Lewis?
Louis
The
Thorax.
thorax.
Yeah.
In the hit film. So I thought this one was uncomfortable as well, just because I think Louis does this in other documentaries where he pushes people a bit too hard for me. Like, there's some way he feels very unbiased and just kind of watching it happen and just asking questions. But for that one, it definitely felt like he wanted a reaction, like a standout of people.
Do you think?
So yeah, there's that. It's kind of based around mainly this one guy's accounts, isn't it? Who was in Scientology and now he's talking about
Yeah, I can't
his
remember his
experiences.
name is.
No,
It's
I'm not gonna remember
yeah,
it.
no, I can't remember.
It's not gonna happen.
But
And
so
there's
someone that was in Scientology who now has left the
yeah, and
church.
tells people about it.
Yeah.
I think they're just going around trying to recreate his stories, but like with sets and with the real locations and stuff, because they obviously can't get in because Scientology is tracking Louis as much as he's tracking them.
Mm.
Like every time he turns up at a location, they're there with cameras ready for him. So there's no way that he can just get an interview with someone really. So they have to make it up from stories.
Yeah.
And there's a bit where, like right in the middle of it, um, Louis asking a lot of questions. I think he's like, saying like, "Why did you do this? Didn't you feel terrible? Like, what do you think people would think of you if you like?" Or like he was really pushing for an emotional response, and I think eventually the guy just walks off and is really, really
Oh, right,
angry at
yeah.
him. And at that bit, it just felt really unnecessary. I felt like you didn't need to do. It was interesting already. You didn't need to try and like get another emotional storyline out of it. Like,
Yeah.
I thought that was
I know.
pretty
Yeah, I
weird.
know what you mean. Sometimes I'm surprised that people. I think he feels like because he's in the position he's in, he can kind of get away with those things sometimes. But
Yeah,
people in Scientology must be so used to being asked questions that
yeah,
they don't want to deal with that they must have quite a sort of short temper about it.
yeah.
Or
But that
yeah,
guy who had like renounced being a Scientologist,
yeah,
probably gone through that. Because I feel like when you're in it, it's much easier to turn off and be like, I'm doing it because of this. That's it. I'm not thinking about it anymore. Whereas if you're outside of it, you're very aware of what you've done and how terrible it was. So a
yeah,
guy just
exactly.
pushing in your face, like trying to get a response out of you, was like, it was disrespectful. I don't know. He'd agreed
Yeah,
to do all these interviews for him, and then he like turns it back on him like that. It's like, and I don't know. If I was him, I would have felt silly for doing that because like, oh, why like just betraying his trust of opening up to him about it. But
yeah,
the film in general, I think, is interesting, but there's a lot of points where I'm asking, like, I was thinking, where is this going? Like, what is the point?
yeah. It's difficult because it's primarily there's not a lot of. It's not like they're going into the headquarters
No.
secretly and kind of filming things. It's like
Which is what I thought it was from the trailer.
yeah,
I
you
thought it
would
was
have
more of
thought it'd
that.
be more like that, but they really it's just reconstructions of eyewitness accounts of what happened when they were
Yeah.
there. Pretty much the guy. I can't remember what the name is of the guy who runs it now.
Oh, was it?
It's
No. Charles. I
something.
can look it up.
Yeah, you might just look it up. Because his dad used to run it, and now, um,
He's like inherited it.
yeah.
Charlie something? Wait, so
And I know that
Scientology
Tom Cruise
leader.
is not that far below this guy.
Yeah, he's kind of like the. Oh, David
David
Miscavige.
Miscavige, yeah,
Yeah.
that's it, yeah. Yeah, so his dad, Ron Miscavige,
No, L. Ron Hubbard.
Owen Hobbit is the
Yeah.
guy that started it.
Yeah, with
Ron
books.
Miscavige is his dad who ran it before him, who left Scientology.
Really?
Yeah, he's been on
It's
like
two Rons?
podcasts and stuff. Well, L. Ron and Ron.
That's silly.
It's got to be a Ron in there.
Inconvenient. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been on podcasts and stuff just as much as people like Leah Remini, who was also
Oh shit, yeah.
a big part of it, and now she's a big denouncer of it.
Wait, did the other leader, did he step down?
Yeah,
Oh, right, I didn't
yeah.
realize.
So David
Oh.
Miscavige must completely just not even acknowledge that
No, they
he's his
must.
dad or anything
Yeah.
because they're just that like into it.
Yeah, you're out of contact as soon as you're
Yeah,
like
anyone who
disgraced.
is not part of it. Yeah, anyone who's not with us is against us.
Yeah.
Is their mentality.
Which
Yeah.
is similar to the other Louis Theroux documentary, the Westboro Baptist one.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And the follow-up one he did as well. Which was
Yeah.
also a good one. I like that one more. I felt like because the figures are like already wanting hate, like they're the ones that are instinct, like they want emotional responses from the people. I feel like Louis is not giving him that, and I prefer that.
Wait, so what happens in the follow-up one? Because I can't remember that
Oh,
one exactly.
so in the first one, it talks to all his families and all the family and the daughters are
Yeah,
quite a big part in it, especially one of them, and just he's
they're
being
very
more
much a part
sensitive.
of it in the first one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's being more sensitive and asking about like what does this mean for their like school life or just being a teenager, like how much are they missing out on and stuff like that. And one of them isn't on there as much, and she kind of doesn't know what to say to a lot of the things, and the other one is um like more, she's pretty honest about stuff, but she's definitely stuck in the Westboro
Yeah,
culture,
they're
I
all
think.
very much a part of it.
Yeah,
And then in
indoctrinated.
the second one,
So then it follows up on another. I'll look it up. Another one of the sisters that left, and I think a few sisters
yeah,
left, but this is a specific one.
yeah,
And just she says that the family completely disowned her, like they wouldn't stay in contact. And I
right, yeah,
think it was more. I think the reason she left was like like a lead up of things. I think people like well, family members talking down on her for her clothing choices
yeah,
and things like that, and I think it just built up over the years. So she just discusses what that's like and how
mm,
she was completely brainwashed into it and just had enough at some point. And then yeah, none of her family spoke to her ever again. Yeah, there's a few sisters, I think.
okay,
Oh yeah, Megan Phelps Roper
yeah,
is the main one I think in the second documentary. But the second one's interesting because since the first one, they've really stepped up their game. In I think it was done in 2012. It was done a good few years after,
it's yeah, yeah.
and they've really stepped up
Oh,
like
what the
the
actual
Westworld
family,
chapters.
like
Yeah,
what they're doing.
like how much
So it's
of a
not just
parody of
picketing,
themselves they are.
right? Yeah, sure.
So they do like YouTube parodies, like music videos. It's
Yeah,
really corny. It's really strange. Um, of
yeah.
just
I've seen them.
hate messages.
Yeah, I've seen them doing their kind of parodies of songs in front
Yeah.
of people, and it's like fucking cringy.
Yeah, it's really dumb. Oh, yeah, 2011 is the second one, 2007 is the first one.
Right,
So
yeah.
yeah, since then, yeah, it's up the
Yeah,
game.
I think Megan Phelps was on Joe Rogan's podcast, which is
Oh,
like
which one's that?
he's just like a really big podcaster,
Oh, okay.
like one of those famous ones.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm surprised. I really can't actually remember much of what, but I know she's got like a boyfriend or a husband now or something,
Yeah,
and
like she's
like
just leading a normal life at this
yeah,
point without her family, which is sad. But I think he goes back and talks to the family, and asks. I think he mentions that there are no like pictures up of her, and they kind of brush it off like, well, what do you
mm,
expect? Like, should there be pictures everywhere? Like, they don't really acknowledge the fact that she's completely disowned. They play it down quite a lot, and they say like, well, we don't want to talk to her. The mum seems pretty upset about it, and the dad, I think that's the way around. One of them, I know one of the parents is much more upset about it than the other.
yeah,
It's sad. It's sad that it is broken up as much as it is.
yeah.
But I don't know how much. I don't know how productive it is. Because I think the
What
first
by
one,
revisiting
yeah,
their family?
both of them. Because he does. Maybe the first one I think was quite. No, I mean like the documentaries themselves. Like the first one,
Oh, okay, yeah,
I feel like had a part in making the sister leave because it highlighted like
yeah.
all these questions highlighted how um, cultish it was. But then it also gave them notoriety, which led them to become
That's true. There was only
famous.
really showing more people who they are, but it was also because I doubt they let a lot of outsiders into their
No,
house, so they must have really highlighted
yeah,
like this is pretty wrong.
I think they upped how much they show people. No, like how much security they have. Because in the second one,
Yeah.
the father of it, like the leader, wouldn't talk to him and didn't really want
Oh,
him
right.
on the premises and stuff like that. Like they
Yeah.
see him as like a leader of hate after that.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, he barely talks to him in the first one,
yeah, it's just
and when he does, it's very like
limited,
sarcastically and very like you don't
defensive,
know
and
what you're talking about, and
yeah,
like just really aggressive. Yeah.
yeah, off the bat. And I think actually talks to right in the beginning he talks to another like a documentary maker that in the second one that initially went to make a documentary like Theroux but then got indoctrinated and made like YouTube videos for them and became like an
Really?
editor.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Yeah,
I
like
didn't
he
know
came there
that.
as like a investigation and then just decided
For
to
the
join.
Whisper Baptist Church.
Yeah. Just
Jesus.
that. So Louis
They've
talks to
got some
him.
influence then.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm sure because they do no, they don't
You got some charisma.
They've got charisma.
Yeah.
Like they really. I
If
remember
nothing else.
our mom is
If
like
not empathy
properly.
or soul.
Oh yeah, compassion or anything like human.
Yeah.
They know how to write a good old parody. They like. I remember the mom is just like feeds off of the hate. Like she really loves it.
Mhm.
How much people like she just loves the attention. I don't know what it is. It's really crazy to watch. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, the most
that's true.
maybe some of the most controversial ones, just because
I would
it's really
well,
sucks to watch.
yeah, I would say one of the most controversial for Louis Theroux is definitely Jimmy Savile.
Oh, okay, I haven't seen that one.
Because have you not?
No.
Okay, so that was part of his I think it was Weird Weekend. Oh no,
Yeah.
it's like when Jimmy met and he met that magician
When Louis
couple
met.
he met. Yeah,
Yeah.
he would go and stay with people for
Yeah.
like a weekend or something.
Was it Anne Widdecombe another one?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Widdicombe. Yeah.
Magician people, ice skating people.
Yeah, I can't remember what his name is.
You got it.
Something Daniels.
Nope.
He
I'm
he
not sure.
he died a few years ago,
Okay.
but uh,
Got it.
yeah. So he stayed with Jimmy Savile
Yeah.
in like 2002 or something,
Right.
and then last year he made, after all this scandal stuff broke out after Jimmy Savile
Yeah.
died, he made another documentary last year just called Savile, where he kind of revisited his 2002 documentary
Yeah.
where he stayed with them, and just kind of looked into it thinking, like, how did I not see any of this? Like, he
Yeah.
feels bad about, like, just not having got deeper into, because he always felt like something was off about him,
Right.
but
It doesn't. Yeah, I've only seen clips because I rewatched Charlie Brooker after mentioning it in the
yeah,
last one. I think there's a bit where he. I think this was post like scandal
yeah,
and one of the yearly wipes. He does talk about the documentary, and like there's a bit of Jimmy Savile saying like I could be like how would they
yeah.
know whether I'm
That
not
was
a pedophile or
that
something
was
like
it.
that.
Yeah, that was in the original one.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much about as close as it gets.
Yeah.
To him admitting something, because yeah, Jimmy Savile's in a car with Louis Theroux,
Mm.
and Louis says, what about all these kind of allegations of isn't he a paedophile?
Mm.
And yeah, Jimmy Savile pretty much says, well, how do they know whether I am or not?
Yeah.
I know that I'm not. So like, and he gets like really like jittery and really kind of like standoffish about it, and
Right.
like
So wouldn't just
it's
laugh it
just
off. It's like very defensive
yeah.
about it. Okay.
He does
Uncomfortable.
seem like he gets that a lot, is what it
Right.
seems like.
Yeah.
Like um, yeah, and I guess he feels guilty because he didn't really see the actual true side of who he
But
was.
how can you like? Unless you're
Yeah,
literally investigating, getting into his like possessions or like files or documents, like police, like unless like you're doing a
yeah,
Jinx about it, I don't know how he could have really.
yeah, exactly. He would have had to have that angle to really get
Yeah,
to the truth of things.
and he might have not even gotten that close to himself if he was going in
No,
with that angle.
yeah, exactly. And
So
that's the thing. He considered him like almost a friend, because
right.
it opens the 2016 one
Mm.
opens with Louis saying to him, Jimmy's leaving his house, and he's
Mm.
saying like, "Oh, just remember, you've always got a place to stay if you're staying in London." Like honestly,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's clear that
Whoops.
he's. And then he talks to people who were like worked with Jimmy Savile and friends with him and
Mm.
stuff, and they all say that they all say the same thing. They all say like, when I watched that original documentary, I thought, oh, he's completely like blindsided him. He's
Right.
completely, he's pulled the wall over Louis' eyes
Yeah.
completely, because
Yeah.
he's as bad as a person he was smart about what
Yeah.
he was doing and
And
smart about what he was
charismatic
saying.
and
Yeah.
like not likable, but
No.
definitely creepy. Definitely.
Very. Yeah.
I don't
Just
know, because
very.
he's kind of like jolly, like a comedian kind of guy. Like he's trying to be very funny. So I get
Yeah.
how some people can be fooled by that. I don't know much about him to be honest. I haven't seen too much footage of him apart from like odd clips.
Okay. It's very interesting to watch. It's not as if you really feel uncomfortable. It's a bit more uncomfortable watching now that you know like
Yeah.
what he is. He seems a lot more creepy
Yeah,
now,
that's
that
the thing.
because before it was just like, oh, he's a bit of an oddball, but
Yeah.
now it's like seems very inappropriate,
Very
some of the things he
yikes.
says.
Yeah.
And he's very like he always just seems like he's looking over his shoulder the whole time. Like he's very nervous about answering some questions and
Yeah.
being like very like you just can't relax around him. That's what it seems like.
Yeah.
Um,
Because I've never seen any clips without without looking at it through the lens of he's a pedophile. Like I don't think I
oh,
knew much
okay.
about him before that.
Yeah.
I think before that I just thought he looked a bit weird. That's it. So
Yeah.
it's hard for me to think of it without that.
Yeah.
But it definitely seems like a Willy Wonka kind of character without that, I guess. Like that kind of.
Yeah.
That was his angle. I'm not really sure, but yeah, no, it's not great.
Yeah, it just seemed like he just got to the point where he had so much power he could just pretty much say and do whatever he wanted. That's what he
Yeah,
felt, and that's probably was true. But
yeah. Definitely had the privilege of being like a veteran BBC presenter, so he'd have the whole
yeah,
BBC on his side. Wasn't there apparent again on Charlie Brooker? I think that he
yeah.
said there was on the same night a Panorama investigation into the BBC airing as and a Newsnight investigation into Panorama,
Oh yeah, I
like
remember. Yeah.
both sides of the BBC defending against themselves about like
Yeah.
were they too lenient on him and things like that, which is
Yeah, because it's
interesting.
so clear that it was an open secret that he.
Yeah.
There's a YouTube video of all of the references that comedians have made over the years
Right.
about him, like very kind of subtly,
Yeah.
and
Like an
like
inside joke kind of.
yeah, and the
Gross.
audience are always kind of like, oh, but
Yeah.
it's obvious that they know like there's something very dodgy about him, and this
Yeah.
is like so
Again,
many years before he
with the
died,
Harvey
and
Weinstein thing again, like there's so
yeah,
many like male figures that are just always
exactly,
joked about and it's just known.
yeah,
And then everyone's so surprised when it comes out as a scandal. Like as in the
exactly,
people
yeah,
that knew about it.
yeah.
So that's pretty
He was
gross.
just yeah, it's just another one like that really.
Yeah. But then contrasting that,
Yeah.
the other two Lou through ones I like are I think A Different Brain was really interesting.
Oh, I
Um
still haven't seen that one actually.
that's really good. About actually there's a good few ones. I think last year he did a series on mental health during
Yeah.
mental health week or something like that. Different Brain, the one about suicide, and he also did a series called Extreme Love, I think, which was
Mm.
Asperger's and Alzheimer's and
You did one
another
on
one. Oh, Child
alcoholism, didn't you?
Predators. Hmm?
On alcoholism?
Oh, that was this year. That was more
Literature?
recently.
Was
That
that
was
this
good as
year?
well. Yeah, they're all good.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the Alzheimer's one was really interesting because there aren't many documentaries, it feels like, on Alzheimer's and dementia. Like,
No. Yeah.
not full feature ones, and I think that's just because it's a pretty heavy topic.
Yeah.
He goes to Arizona, I think, to a home specifically for Alzheimer's and dementia, and follows three different people,
Mm.
and specifically couples, I think, is the angle and like how they deal with. It's a good one.
Right, yeah.
The documentary is good. So
So it follows like
follows.
the way that it affects couples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's the early onset one, and then there's a woman who is late onset,
Mm.
and her husband that cares for her, and again, I think it's more common in women as far as I know.
Alzheimer's.
I think Alzheimer's is more common in women, dementia is more common in men, and that's
Right.
the one that's more aggressive, like
Yeah.
more. They say that that one's more active, and Alzheimer's is more passive, like you don't act as active.
Okay.
And then third one was a bit heartbreaking. It was like the husband who had it and who didn't really remember that he was married to his wife and thought that she was the receptionist that they met, like he met
Oh
before
God,
they
yeah.
married. And so she visits all the time, but like knows that just visiting as a carer, and like she knows that he has affairs, I guess, with the
Yeah.
women in the institute because as far as he's concerned, he's not married.
Right.
But keeps going. And
I think I might have seen this actually.
okay,
That does ring a
yeah,
bell. Yeah. I do. That does. I do seem to remember that.
okay. It's definitely it's a big like range of them because there's
Because she really just you were saying about the wife who knows
mm,
he's kind of
cheating.
having
Yeah, she's
cheating,
fully
but
aware.
like he doesn't realize. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I do remember that. It's really strange how kind of okay with it that she is because
yeah.
she.
She has to be so disconnected from it, like so detached.
Yeah,
She like so I don't think you can see it as your husband anymore. I think it's just a person
yeah.
you're caring for at that point. It's very
I completely forgot
bizarre.
I'd seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, and um, yeah, because he doesn't know he's not cheating technically because he doesn't know that he's cheating,
No,
and she's
yeah.
just accepted that.
Mm.
And then there's the there's a mother who's is very 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 late and kind of is essentially nonverbal, and doesn't have any visitors apart from one son
Mm.
who is just kind of he doesn't feel that he has to. It's just that no one else visits in the family, so it's all on him. Yeah, it's interesting seeing the different approaches. I think there's one of them that at least by the end of it, or is considering that like just not visiting anymore
Yeah.
because there's no point. I think it gets like it's too difficult and too aggressive, like aggressive towards her
Right. Yeah.
visiting. But yeah, I like that one just because of how personal it is, and it's mainly because a lot of these show like authoritative figures and like facts and stuff.
Yeah.
But this is pretty much just anecdotal, like just the people and following them and getting like really intimately into their lives.
Yeah, I
Which
do
is
remember that
very,
being a good one.
yeah,
Actually, it's
very
very
cool to see.
interesting.
Because yeah, you don't really see like with Alzheimer's dementia, there's so much just academic information and not much on actually dealing with it as a person.
Yeah, the personal side of it is just so heartbreaking to see
Yeah,
people
I
come to
would.
terms with.
Yeah, I would like to see it from somebody who's suffering from its point of view, and the closest I've got to that was a YouTube documentary, like a series, about someone with ALS,
Yeah.
so like that motor neuron disease,
Mm.
and he completely filmed it himself over the course of a really long time. I think it was episodic, from being diagnosed to death, and I think it was assisted suicide,
Yeah.
and just getting like his voice breaking down and like having to get a wheelchair and all this stuff. That was really interesting, and I'm one of the only ones I've seen from the point of the view of the person who's suffering as opposed to the family. So I've heard that kind of thing. And then the other one that I liked was A Different Brain, which was brain injuries. And
Yeah.
similar thing in that the family kind of becomes the carer as opposed to like a family. One of the worst, like the most heartbreaking ones in that one is this woman who seems like so like happy and is cheerful and funny. A bit slower, but like very outgoing and just like seems to be fine. And then it's revealed that she tried to commit suicide when she was like about 20 years earlier, 10 years earlier, when she's an art student and was like very heavily depressed and doesn't remember that she did that. So
Right. Yeah.
she like took pills and then went almost into vegetative state.
Yeah.
And then so everyone around her knows that she did this, but she doesn't, and that's the most like uncomfortable thing, I think, just because of how happy she seems. Except that she can't be, and like she'll never recover. Like she'll never go outside of the facility by herself because they said that she's very vulnerable to people taking advantage and things like that.
Right. Yeah.
She just cannot.
Is she kind of mentally disabled then?
Yeah, at this point, yeah, like she can't really live by herself or be by herself for any amount of time. And they talk to like her family about it and see her engaging with the family, and it's very strange seeing them like act differently with her. And then there was one person in there who the mother was in a horse riding accident, I think.
All right.
And she could live. I think she has to have a nurse in the house, but she can live with her family still, but she doesn't want to anymore. She just wants to be alone now. Like her personality is, like seems to have dramatically shifted to not wanting to be around her family because they treat her differently. Like they don't.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because she's meaner to them now, like just because her patience is shorter. So that's pretty heartbreaking as well.
It's really strange how that becomes a thing. Like the kind of most minor of head injuries can literally just change someone's personality completely.
Irrevocably, completely, yeah.
Yeah, because I know that. I don't know if you know the comedian Sam Kinison.
No.
He's like, I don't know if he's like 80s or something. He's like a very kind of shouty, aggressive comedian.
Right.
He had a head injury that made him like that, basically.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly what it is. It was on Joe Rogan who spoke about it. But yeah, supposedly this comedian was like...
Was he actually on the podcast or was he...
No, I think he might be dead now. Okay. I'm not sure. But before he became a comedian, he was just like a really kind of quiet, normal guy. And then he had a head injury and suddenly became like had this personality that made him really famous. So
that's really strange.
Yeah, which you don't really hear that much. It's usually...
You don't hear success stories like well, you hear like recovery stories, but not improved success stories usually. That's kind of what. So he became more aggressive, or just like louder and more.
He's a very loud
Mm.
comedian. Yeah, he's very like shouty and
Yeah.
kind of yeah, quite sort of
God.
crude, I guess.
You can just tell the
But he was
family.
very famous. Yeah.
Mm. That was one of the things actually with the woman that had attempted suicide. She became like had a lot less filter, I guess. So I think that must
Yeah,
be part of it. I think
I think that is.
the part of the brain where your shame and like embarrassment and anxiety, they're all in the same bit. So if you lose that, then you become much more less inhibited. So I guess it's that.
Yeah.
Something to do with that.
Yeah.
So that's all super interesting. And it's kind of another look at that is what's it called? My Beautiful Brain, I think. My Beautiful Broken Brain. My Broken
Yeah, I think
Brain? They're one of the.
I haven't seen that one either.
It has those
But
words in it.
yeah,
Which
yeah.
is on It was on Netflix. I don't know if it still is. Which was a like uni student or PhD student, I think, who
Uh-huh.
just had a stroke. Um, I'm not sure if they found out why, and it kind of starts with her explaining what that's like with a lot of lights and like abstract imagery kind of things. It's kind of they really make an effort to try and show what everything looks like to her now with like impaired vision and color looking different and stuff like that. That's all pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And for her, it was like learning how to talk again and learning how to like learning how to do everything again, but from a much more internal way as opposed to cold, just like facts, interviews, things like that. So I like that way,
Right,
that
yeah.
style of doing it. That was quite interesting.
Yeah. It just sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Um so we're still is that Theroux?
No,
That's
so
no.
someone else.
Okay.
That I think that was an independent one.
Okay. Like there's Louis Theroux has done so much. Like I've
He's
still
done a
got
few.
that we haven't talked about.
Mm.
Neo-Nazis, porn, Michael Jackson, alcoholism, heroin addiction. I think he did wild hunt trophy hunting one as well.
I've seen very few of those actually. I saw the porn one, I think, but
Yeah.
a lot of those I skipped
Okay.
for some reason.
Yeah, the neo-Nazis one is really it's quite difficult to watch
Yeah,
because
imagine.
he I'll just say quickly he
Mm.
goes to this family of neo-Nazis
Mm.
who
Oh, so everyone like children.
yeah, all of
Right.
them.
Okay.
He goes to different families, but
Mm.
this one's the most kind of hardcore. And he's like getting along with them. He's kind of talking to them, and then suddenly they're sitting down,
Mhm.
and one of them asks him if he's Jewish,
Mm.
and he says instead of saying no
Mm.
because he isn't,
Yeah.
he says, "Well, I don't see why I should say because it doesn't matter,"
Yeah.
which is technically.
Not saying no, not
It's
denying
not
it.
saying that, yeah, it's
Yeah,
not denying
which
it,
is what they want.
but that is, there's logic to saying that because
Yeah.
that is how it should be,
Yeah.
obviously. Um, and obviously they start really like ganging up on him and being like, well, the more that you say that makes me think that you are, so
Yeah.
you're gonna have to like get out of here if you're not gonna tell me that you're not. And he
Mm.
just stands by it. He keeps saying, no, well, I'm not gonna say because it doesn't matter if I
Yeah.
am or not.
Not,
And
yeah.
then yeah, he's pretty much just made to leave like
Right.
immediately, just because he didn't say whether
Yeah.
or not he
He's
was.
uncertain.
Yeah, and he isn't. But like, it doesn't matter.
That's terrifying.
It's quite intense, that one.
Mm.
Um,
I think my favorite one of was that the series like what it's called. He's done a few series ones, but there's like a really long one. There's like 2 seasons in it. That the porn one,
um,
or was that?
I'm not sure if it was a part of a.
Oh, okay, it was a standalone one.
Yeah, it might have just been a standalone
Okay.
one. Yeah, yeah.
I think of the series that he did, like pretty early on. It was like 90s or maybe early 2000s.
Yeah.
That one.
Is it the one that ends with Weird Christmas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That one's really strange.
Yeah. I think that was my favorite series. My favorite episode from that might be the Swingers one. Like
I
I've
don't remember
watched a
that
few
one.
times. It's just again really strange and a bit too personal at times. I'm thinking
Yeah.
like Louis, like he. So he talks to a few families, not families, Jesus, a few couples that take part in swinging and
Yeah.
like a single woman, and he just goes through the process of how they would organize this, and it's comedic, but also, yeah, I think it's
Didn't
very
they go to a
voyeuristic.
supermarket in that one?
Yeah,
Yeah, I seem to kind of remember it.
And
but not really.
they're kind of making a big deal of how like them and selling one that's a swinger party, and they could easily have just brought the things and left, but they're really
Yeah.
making a thing of how it's a swinger party.
Yeah.
And then he goes to one,
Mm.
and it just shows the whole night of him like definitely earnestly trying his best,
Yeah.
and it's a lot. It's a lot, but it's one of the more insane like revealing ones. I
Yeah.
think.
I like the way that he gets very stuck into kind of what he's doing.
Yeah, I think that makes up for the times when he is more. I think it's just in the serious ones he seems to be more pushy to get a response, like a emotional
Yeah.
response, where I'd rather he just like either took part as a participant or just objective view of it.
Mm.
But generally, yeah, I really like almost all his documentaries. I think, especially my favorite one's always the mental health ones and the ones that are about like internal things like that,
Yeah.
and just changes of the mind and stuff like that.
Mm.
Speaking of that, my favorite one I think is Stephen Fry's Secret Life of Manic-Depressive, which
Okay, I haven't seen that.
that's really good. That was the first one was I think 2006, and is mainly about Stephen Fry's own experiences and talking about how he had a breakdown in the 90s
Yeah.
sometime, and he really details like the whole like the night that he had a breakdown, everything he did. He like attempted suicide and then
Mm.
just ran away to France, basically just got on a ferry without telling anyone.
Oh, right.
Because he has manic depression.
Manic depression, yeah.
And which is mainly a lot of like impulse control problems. So just he just left, and then everyone was like, it was in the newspapers. Like people thought he like either died or like run away. They had no idea what happened. And then, he recovered from it, and he's very candid about all his experiences and thoughts.
Yeah.
I really, really just appreciated how honest he was with everything, and how he talks about it, like that. And he talks to, I think this is in the first one. He talks to a woman, like a student or writer, who lives with her mum still, and talks to her mum about it and how her life has changed with manic depression. I think it's the first one, which talks to Carrie Fisher.
Oh, right.
Who is she bipolar or has she got manic depression?
I wouldn't be able to say. I'm not
Need
sure.
to fact check. Gotta do a fact
I
check.
think it's one of those.
Yeah, it's like very similar symptoms at least. And obviously she's amazing and talks about everything so like just so well.
Yeah.
And she wait a second.
Wait, so does Stephen Fry talk to her in the documentary?
Yeah, so he goes to her house,
right. Okay.
which is amazingly decorated and
Hmm.
a bit manic, I would say. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's got bipolar disorder.
Okay.
And who else did he talk to? He talks to like a lot of scientists as well as that. So it's not just it's anecdotal. It's getting to the chemistry of it. It's medication.
Yeah.
So many different facets of it that I really liked, as well as his own experiences. I don't know. It's just really feels really comprehensive. And then the second one is kind of following up with the people he talked to in the second one.
Mm-hmm.
But I watched that like 5 times now. I think I just really it's very easy to watch, but also very interesting. And educational.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. Do you have a favorite?
I definitely do want to watch that one, actually. That sounds good. Favorite documentary?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know about favorite. Like one that I've seen. I mean, the one that I've probably seen the most is Supersize Me, but that's probably just because that was the one that I first. That's like one of the first ones I ever saw.
Yeah.
Really?
I still haven't seen that, just because I feel like I don't need to
Really?
now. Yeah, I've heard so much
okay.
about it. It's like I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it seems to be fake or like not very.
I don't know how
accurate.
scientifically accurate it is and how much it actually,
Reveals
what it really means, the kind of the information that they get from it, because obviously nobody, a very few, if anyone, a very small percentage of people are gonna, have this diet, and it doesn't exactly prove a whole lot. Like it's not like they recommend.
Bad for you? Like that seems to be the whole gist of it.
As if people didn't know that already. But it's just interesting. They do a lot of kind of side things as well as him just kind of eating the McDonald's. They tell you, they go into schools and kind of look at what kids are eating, and it just shows how he kind of almost starts getting addicted to it. Like he starts getting like a rush of happiness when
Yeah.
he is eating this stuff, and how it's affecting his body, and yeah, it's
And like the whole culture of it as well as
yeah,
that stuff. Okay.
yeah, definitely.
That does sound quite interesting.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know how.
Does it feel like he's going in it with an angle, like trying to like saying there's a certain type of people that eat this kind of thing, saying it's already because the thing I got from it is just it's not judgmental, but like
Well,
has an angle.
I think he kind of went into it a lot because I think two sisters in like the 90s or something sued McDonald's because they became obese from eating McDonald's, and I think they won the case, and it was kind of just like,
Why?
oh, I mean, it seems obvious that that would happen, but
Yeah.
yeah,
It's still
he's basically just trying to prove that, you know, it will lead to an unhealthy lifestyle if
yeah.
you eat this stuff every day,
Yeah.
and it
It's like
seems
the
obvious now, but maybe it wasn't obvious then. I
yeah.
don't know. It's not very hardcore though. I think it's not like you're seeing how it's made and stuff, and the kind of cruelty and the kind
Okay.
of capitalist, you know. It's not. It's
It's like
kind of
surface.
light-hearted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So easy to watch in that way.
Yeah.
That makes sense then. I like really hard to watch documentaries.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
like
probably not.
suffering.
Yeah, it's probably not cruel enough for you.
What's the hardest one that you've had to watch?
Hardest one to
Yeah.
watch, probably Zachary,
Yeah. That's
I
definitely
think.
up there.
Yeah.
That is just so well made, and
Yeah.
because I think it's a whole family of filmmakers. The family it's about, and won't say anything about it, but so it explains why it's just so well edited and like the order of the scenes and how it's told. It's super
Yeah.
like emotional. And the story is very emotional anyway, but like they make it. Sometimes I have an issue with like the bigger picture. I have an issue with like the big swelling music and trying to make it emotional when if the story is emotional enough, it will just do that for you instead of relying on super dramatic editing. But it's just a really well told story
Yeah.
and has it resolves. It's all good.
I think
But
it's
horrible.
yeah, I think the best way to go into it is just knowing nothing about it,
Yeah.
because that's how I went into it, and I put it off for a long time, and I wish that I hadn't, because you know, the sooner you see this, sooner it will have an
You watch it.
effect on you, and like,
Yeah.
you know, it's rough, but it's
Watch it.
unbelievable story.
Yeah.
Like it's so like just
I think that's also I put it off
soul
as
crushing.
well, just because I did every review I saw, because obviously I have to research before I watch it because I don't want surprises.
Sure.
Every review was saying it was like mind blowing, best documentary I've ever seen. Like you had to watch it. So then you got the hype problem, and then I didn't know if I wanted
Yeah.
to ruin the hype. But it's definitely worth it. Like it's one of all the things that have been super hyped up, that's definitely one of them that's worthy of it.
I think it does. And I think the fact that I said something halfway through, and then that ended up happening, and it just killed me. And like it's such a kind of like emotionally, like just really,
Bad time.
yeah, it just messes
Everybody.
with your emotions so
Yeah.
badly throughout. But it's amazing,
Yeah.
and it feels like I feel like it should be seen, because it should kind of shed light on that story,
Yeah.
because like otherwise the events that happened in it happen for nothing.
Yeah.
So it's like people should at least watch it,
Yeah. Just to know about
and
it.
like it will have an effect on you,
Yeah.
no matter who you are.
It's very good. And one that's similar to that for me is Boy Interrupted, which I don't think you've
I
seen.
haven't seen that, no.
That's very good as well,
Is that
and
similar?
made by like filmmakers, like family filmmakers again. So it's just a lot of, I don't know if it's foreshadowing, but themes, I guess they managed to put like. So it's the story of, they mentioned it pretty early on, I think, a boy with borderline personality disorder.
Yeah.
And it goes through, because they've filmmakers, they've got so much footage of his life. You really get to know the person. It's so revealing of who he is and what he would have felt, and has like family interviews, friend interviews, as well as a bit about the disorder. I think it's still fairly unknown, to be honest, or
Yeah,
Or something
I've
similar.
not heard of that.
What, borderline personality disorder?
No, oh, I thought you were talking about the
Oh, the
thing in
film.
general. Yeah.
Oh, right, no. It's on a lot of lists of like top 10
Oh,
documentary
okay.
lists about mental health.
Yeah.
It's just another one where it's made up of so much archival footage that you really feel like you know the person, so it makes
Mm.
the event so much more, what's the word? Effective? Impactful?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
So that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I guess, if we're saying favorites when it's like a horrible story, but
Yeah.
really a good story to watch, kind of.
But those are the ones that stay with you, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
More so.
Yeah, like it's good to know about the disorder
Yeah.
and what is the effect on people. And it's also just from a storytelling, just editing, all that. It's just a very well made film.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, the other one that I found really hard to watch, Child of Rage,
Okay. Yeah.
which we were talking about the other day, is like
Yeah.
shorter than usual. I think it's like only half an hour, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's just, as far as I can remember, it's just one long interview. There's not very much like
There's not
footage
much
or anything.
editing to it, really.
No,
It's just
you're just
kind of
watching it.
almost one take, sort of,
Yeah.
of this girl. It's all of it is on YouTube. I don't know where
Yeah.
you would find it other than that.
Yeah.
But
In the 90s, I think.
yeah, she's just talking
So
very candidly about um her abuse.
and the attachment disorder, I think it's called.
Yeah,
Attachment
I haven't
disorder.
seen it for a while, but
I know it's like basically a recorded therapy session.
yeah.
So it's a therapist, like someone she knows, and he's just very delicately handling it because it is a child. She's only, I think, 8 or something. She's like under 10. She's very young.
Yeah.
Trying to like ask her about. It feels more like a study. It feels like it's for informative purposes. So there's no music that, like, as far as I can remember, that might be. But I don't think there's any like soundtrack like ramping up. It's just what she's saying and how
Yeah,
she's
it's
saying it
very
and her attitude towards saying it. Which
mm,
makes it a lot more disturbing.
yeah.
I think she's called Beth. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's worth watching as well. Again, probably wouldn't say anything that she says in it, but yeah, definitely watch that.
Yeah.
And then, oh yeah, best documentary as well. I think, The Jinx.
Yeah, the Jinx is definitely up there as one of the best. Just
Yeah,
um
as a series.
it's just yeah, because we spoke about this a bit last time when we were talking about TV shows,
Oh
and
yeah, of course.
yeah, so Robert Durst um pretty much got away with murder several times because of how wealthy his family were
Yeah,
and how much
understanding.
influence his family had. He's obviously a very messed up person who went through a lot of things, which I think included witnessing his mother's suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole it's a TV documentary that goes for like I don't know, 6 episodes or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely some time.
And yeah, it's essentially this film crew making the documentary are trying to kind of, I mean, these events happened like decades ago, I think,
Yeah.
the
It's a
murders,
really long time
and then they
span.
went to trial and everything,
Yeah.
and he just got away with it. And now this film crew from a few years ago just kind of tried to get together as much
Yeah.
evidence as they could
I
to
think he
take him down because he's still free.
yeah. He contacted them because they made
Mm.
a film, didn't they? Like a biopic of him. And he was so interested in how they depicted
Yeah,
him that he wanted to talk to them and he rarely gives interviews.
yeah,
Um so the film crew were in disbelief themselves about it. And it just really takes a turn.
yeah.
It really goes
Yeah. The
somewhere.
ending is
Probably the best ending of
very
a
yeah,
documentary.
one of the best endings I've ever seen. It's so haunting and just like
Unbelievable.
uh yeah, you really are rooting for them by the end, and like the ending is just so shocking and
Yeah.
just the build. Oh god, it's so
Okay,
good. It's
watch
one
it.
of the best. Yeah, just
Yeah.
watch it.
Um. Well, I'm trying to think which one's links. I mean, we saw.
Yeah,
That's very good. That's
yeah.
again one of the things where you're just watching a chain of events happen,
Mhm.
and you're getting a very. So it's about a congressman, New York congressman, called Anthony Weiner.
Anthony
I
Weiner,
think so.
yeah.
Yeah. Who was at some point a very respected, like loved figure, and then through a scandal, kind of loses this standing. He still's got a bit of a fan base almost, like a following.
Mm.
And he decides to run for mayor, and it's just following this campaign of running for mayor and getting like the crew is like in really close to this man's
Yeah, they're
life.
generally in the same room as him.
Yeah,
Even
all the time.
when all these kind of arguments and things are breaking out between like him and his wife, and
Yeah.
or sort of the underlying tension
Yeah, like
because their
campaign
marriage
winners.
is kind of on the rocks
It's very
after
good.
his yeah, because the scandal is he pretty much sent dick pics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't he tweet them? Didn't he tweet one by accident
Maybe that was it.
or
Yeah, yeah,
something?
that must be how
Yeah.
they got public. I think. He
Yeah.
accidentally tweets one.
So one got tweeted, and yeah, he was obviously at the beginning like, that's not mine, and then
Yeah,
obviously
it's
it came out that it was.
the deception is the main part. I think that people were mad about. I think like first
Yeah.
was coming up as like, how can they trust him if he lied about it?
Yeah.
Not even just the initial thing. For like, the round up to it would have been fine. But then it gets worse. So.
Yeah. It's
Not
just
great.
like
Doesn't help himself
it's
anyway.
yeah, and it just goes to show he's such a charismatic, influential person that he manages to build back his audience
Yeah.
so well, and then something else happens, and he's just completely taken down so many notches because of,
Yeah.
and it's just like him trying to maintain his reputation even though he's doing these shitty things,
Really big car wreck.
and
Very well
yeah,
made though. Very well edited.
yeah,
I
yeah.
really enjoyed
I
it.
didn't know much about him, didn't care much about him,
Yeah.
but I thought it was good.
Yeah. But I think another one that's kind of like really revealing of someone's life is capturing the Friedmans, which
Mm.
I think I should have said this earlier. When you asked about ones you wouldn't recommend, I don't know. I would. It was
Yeah,
interesting to watch.
I know what you
but
mean.
Yeah, it just wasn't. It didn't have a big twist. It didn't have a big climax. It didn't really have an ending. It just kind of happened. It kind of the events played out. You get home movies, so you do get like pretty into their lives.
Yeah, I think the film itself kind of is more. It's more amazing that this exists
Yeah.
than the fact that you know there isn't much of a climax to it, but it's more like unbelievable that this kind of film exists.
Yeah.
Because
Pretty unique, actually.
it's essentially these kids who make a lot of home movies.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
It is, yeah, like a family. It's following a
Yeah.
family, and the brothers, like the siblings, make home movies.
Yeah.
Don't say the thing.
Do you think is that not like the basis of it?
I don't know how soon into it they talk about it, but I feel like
Okay.
that was the thing that
So
the way it played out was the most interesting thing for me, because apart from that,
okay.
nothing much happens.
All right. So there's a bit of a twist about the dad, and it's essentially the kids still making these home movies while the dad is being accused of certain things,
Yeah.
and it's like just documenting the relationship between this family.
Arguments between like
Yeah.
the husband and wife. They're filming like family meetings about it almost. Like it's so
Yeah, it's
weird
so
how they thought to
personal.
film it.
Yeah, it's such. You really don't feel like you should even be watching this
Yeah.
because it's like, why would you film this?
Yeah.
But it's pretty unbelievable that
Yeah.
that is a thing that exists.
Yeah.
And just like,
That's cool by itself, actually.
yeah.
I think.
But yeah, not necessarily something I would watch again or something I would recommend, but it's
If you want like crime kind of or like family drama,
Yeah.
I guess it's pretty good for that.
yeah.
One that I would recommend is you tried watching it. It's a series, Making a Murderer,
Mhm.
and I tried watching it, and I don't know if it's just because I was watching Game of Thrones at the same time, but I couldn't deal with how depressing it was. Like how.
I didn't even write
get
down
better.
Making a Murder actually, but I think
You liked
it's
it.
very good. Yeah.
It's well made and everything. It was just, for me, maybe it's the fact that it is so long and it keeps happening that with all these documentaries, they're pretty hard to watch or like hard to digest, but they end at some point. Like it's an hour,
Yeah.
and then it wraps up. Whereas this just kept going on, and I didn't know how much I could deal with it, and like how hopeless and bleak it seemed. Like I just didn't enjoy watching this person's life get ruined.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's all kind of about police corruption and
Yeah.
about pretty much you're constantly wondering whether or not this guy is being framed for murder because the town he lives in, the people, the police, the chief of police, the police of chief of police, has something against the main guy, and yeah, so you're constantly wondering like, is this guy being framed for murder or did he actually do it or like, it's kind of inconclusive still.
Yeah, like
I mean, someone does get sentenced by the end, a few people, but it's almost like an unsolved mystery, really.
Yeah, which really kind of frustrates me. Oh yeah, I don't know if this counts, but BuzzFeed Unsolved is really good.
Yeah.
If you just want very quick, like 20-minute snapshots of unsolved mysteries, there's a true crime one and the supernatural one.
This is a YouTube
Oh yes,
series.
on YouTube.
Yeah.
So it's super easy to get through in like a few days. I really like that for how it's very lighthearted, but still a lot of it's pretty harrowing. Like the true crime ones, I found harder to watch than the supernatural ones. I mean, just
Yeah.
because they're real people and it's undisputable, whereas supernatural is kind of like
Yeah.
fun. Um,
I definitely was kind of skeptical going into watching those
mm,
because, like, BuzzFeed, like, what do they
yeah.
do? They make, like, British people try American
Which
candy.
crap would you be?
Which crap would you
Let's
be?
all guess from your age.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's gonna seem
So, but this is honestly these two guys just kind of talking about true crimes, true unsolved
yeah,
crimes. Um, it's so interesting. There's
yeah,
like a couple of series, and you can just go
so
through
much
them
of it.
and just like, yeah, it's very, it's a lot of stuff that I'd never heard of as well,
Yeah,
which
I
was
respect.
interesting. And they also do stuff like JFK assassination and O.J. Simpson
Yeah,
and things like that. But a lot of things that I'd never heard of that were really fascinating.
yeah, really harrowing. Oh, also, I don't know if this is different, but like another YouTube person that is kind of, I got into like a horrible spiral of these kind of videos. Ask a Mortician, which isn't really a documentary, but it's kind of about
Mm.
being like she's a mortician, she answers questions,
It's about a
and
real
also,
person.
but also she does make it's kind of like a video series of iconic deaths, I think she calls them. So it's
Oh,
kind
right.
of investigating really strange deaths and the way bodies are preserved, which
Yeah.
sounds like
Has she done one on
macabre
Walt
as hell.
Disney?
Hmm?
Has she done one on Walt Disney?
No, actually, I don't think so.
That's that's it. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of mystery about where his body went.
Yeah, I think it's because you can't. Yeah, she doesn't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. But these are like, so there's like the Iceman. I can't remember his name. Something the Iceman. There's Princess, no, Lady Di, as in Dai, not Diana.
Not down.
Who's like this ancient, super ancient body of a woman in China who was just incredibly like 2,000 years old, I think, but she was preserved like as if she died yesterday, and
Oh,
like
right.
things
Wow.
like that,
Yeah.
which are really really interesting. Do not watch them past 10 p.m. because that will not
Okay.
work for you.
What are they called?
Um, so the YouTube channel is just Ask a Mortician. I think
All
that
right.
series is called Iconic Deaths.
Yeah.
So that's kind of little mini documentary series is in a way, but
Yeah.
very again lighthearted. Like she focuses on the comedy of it definitely, or
Okay.
just the intrigue as opposed to hard hitting stuff. So
Yeah.
she's a mortician, so to her it's pretty average, like pretty normal to talk about.
Uh huh.
But I haven't actually got any documentaries on supernatural stuff, considering how interested I am in it. Like,
Yeah, I don't either. I guess there's a lot of speculation about supernatural stuff, so it's it's difficult to find conclusive evidence
yeah,
of things. Like
it's all gonna
I
be
don't
pretty
know
average.
many that are about supernatural stuff, but
No, I know Louis Theroux did one about those UFO catchers, I think they're
oh
called, like
yeah,
the people
yeah.
that try and find these. But again, that one was just
That
kind of
seemed more about the
yeah,
people as opposed to like,
yeah,
are these real? Is there
yeah.
truth to
I don't think
this?
he went. Yeah, I guess into
Yeah.
that. So yeah, these are all about. I think crime is the biggest thing,
Yeah.
the biggest topic for me.
Mhm.
One I haven't mentioned is um, life animated.
Yeah.
So I was just looking for documentaries about autism because I think it's fairly like it's got a certain demographic. So like it's always very about the parents and them dealing with it, and um, very little about the person. It's kind of like speaking for the person all the time. And this one was good. It's a very well made, very well produced documentary, but it still wasn't quite what I was looking for. It's about
Mhm.
it's I recommend it though. A guy called. Let's just go on to Safari real quick. About a man who has yeah, autism
Yeah.
and learnt to verbalize through Disney films.
Mhm.
So I don't know how much they paid for Disney royalties, but they kind of illustrate each part of his life with little like hand-drawn animations and um, parts from Disney, like all montage together,
Yeah.
and it's very uplifting. Like the way they did it is very kind of inspirational, American style of it, which isn't always my favorite, just because I like, as I said, I like stripped down ones. But
Wait, so he learned to verbalize.
yeah, so Owen Siskind is the guy.
Yeah.
He like he seemed to be neurotypical child until like 3, I think, and then he suddenly couldn't talk anymore, like couldn't communicate in the same way,
Yeah.
and it's so I think there's some home movies and stuff like that, and then as he watched the movies, he learned to copy what they said to get. So they're using echolalia, which is where you use like repeated phrases to communicate, as opposed to knowing how to verbalize what you want. So
Yeah.
and I think he just got really, really well known. Like his story became really big for how much he loves Disney, really, and how much he's able to function through Disney alone. Like only Disney movies, he would just watch the same ones over and over again.
Okay.
And yeah, it is pretty incredible how big he gets, like how much attention he gets from the media, and how like I think he does a press conference, like he does a speech somewhere, considering he couldn't speak at some point. He does like an entire unwritten speech.
Yeah.
And that's good. That's a good documentary. I'd recommend it.
Yeah, I've always been kind of interested to see that, but
Yeah.
just never got around to it.
No, because there's as I said, there's very few ones about autism I found.
Yeah.
But again, if you're interested in that, or if you like Disney, even it's good for that, because they really go into the Disney part of it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, as you said, they must have paid quite a lot to be able to use so much Disney stuff.
They do not hold back.
Yeah.
Just because it's like sat.
Unless it was funded by Disney or
It
something.
might have been.
Yeah.
Possibly. But yeah, I haven't got any more ones about disability or disorders, really.
What did you think of Grey Gardens?
Oh god, yeah. I really liked that. It was really. I just found them so fascinating. So
Yeah.
it's about Jackie O's kind of cousins. I think it's her cousins, her family, distant relatives.
Yeah.
Who I'm still not sure.
So Jackie O was the first lady?
No, wait.
Or is that a different
I
Jackie?
think that's Jackie Kennedy. 1 second.
Jackie O is.
I think she's an actress. Like it's.
Okay.
This was in like the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
And the film was done in the 70s.
I think 70s. Yeah.
1 second. So Jackie O is. You're right. It's Jackie Kennedy.
Is it really?
I'm pretty sure
okay.
they're Onassis. It must have been, yeah. I think because that's why they gained notoriety.
Yeah.
Because they are related to the yeah.
Right. Yeah.
No, you're right. And basically.
So President Kennedy's wife's cousins.
Yes. So there's Little Edie and Big Edie, and we're called Edie or Edith.
Yeah.
And they live together in this family. I think Little Edie is the carer of Big Edie, and
yeah.
So they're both characters.
They're like both very interesting people.
Yeah.
And they live in this very rundown mansion in some kind of very like
middle of nowhere, complete.
Yeah, seems very kind of like outback.
Yeah.
Like Alabama looking, kind of a lot of trees, and it's very kind of overgrown everywhere, and like hasn't been very well maintained at all.
Feels like it's in the middle of time. Like it doesn't even exist in a time or realm.
Yeah.
Near us. I think they have like people hired to come in and like bring them food or something like that.
Yeah. So that's one guy who just brings them food from like the local town, I guess.
Yeah.
And they've got fucking raccoons just living in the roof.
Yeah.
And they just like feed them like loaves of bread.
Yeah,
they
just leave them out for
it's
them.
just like
And cats. And I just like how there's a hole. Right at the beginning they mentioned that there's a hole starting to come through in a wall, and like you just see this hole get bigger and bigger, and like raccoons living in it as the film goes on.
Yeah, by the end it's just this massive gaping
just wall missing.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much sums it up.
Yeah.
I really like documentary just for how it doesn't help you out. It really doesn't try and explain what's going on.
No, not at all. It doesn't hold your hand at all, and is very, very slow. Like,
yeah.
I imagine a lot of people would probably just kind of turn it off because it's like, what the fuck is going on?
They weren't so interesting. Yeah, if they were like regular people, definitely, because there isn't really a storyline at all. It's just there's these two people basically stream of consciousness, constantly saying things. Little lady wanted to be a dancer, I think, and
Yeah.
from what I could tell, her mum called her back from New York
Mhm. To take care of
because
her.
yeah,
Was it? Yeah.
and because she thought she wasn't doing well in New York, whereas the lady was like loving being in New York and stuff like that. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of resentment for Big Edie,
Yeah.
and Big Edie has resentment for her because she wanted to be an actress, but she had children instead. So
So they're both very
need each
kind of,
other.
yeah, full of resentment, but also kind of need each other. There's kind
Yeah,
of like this weird kind
completely
of
reliant.
sitcom like relationship that they have,
Yeah,
where
God,
one is like dreaming of what could have been, and one is like both of them are really,
both
and it's like,
reminiscing,
yeah,
completely stuck in
yeah,
the past.
yeah,
Absolutely, like, they talk like old transatlantic, like 50s movie stars.
yeah,
Assess the performance, and like one of them would just break into
like
song for a full five
criticizing each other's
minutes.
singing, yeah, and
Yeah,
like
yelling at each other for being.
bickering constantly, and
Yeah,
just yeah,
it's a bit
it's
maddening.
really really strange,
It's
but
really fun.
interesting.
Yeah, and just yeah, and then there's like people that come into the lives to just help out with food and stuff.
Mm.
It's never clear who they are. I think little lady is convinced that one of them is stealing a book or something. And, like she keeps referring to him as like the devil, or like some kind of
Yeah,
like
she doesn't like
derogatory thing.
him.
And it's never revealed
And
why. Every
like
shot of
he's just
him.
this normal ass guy who just brings them stuff.
Yeah,
And
he
it's
looks
just
like
like
he's in the 80s. He looks like he's a person,
yeah.
and he's just sitting there looking around like, why am I here? As these two like people are just screaming show tunes at him. And there's cats just
Yeah.
and
Cats
everything.
wandering around, yeah.
Yeah. I think that caused Jackie O to buy a new house for them. I think that
Right, yeah.
started a whole money raising thing, I think, for them.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They definitely. The situation was fixed because of the release of the
Yeah.
documentary. They were going to get kicked out of the house. That was it. They were going to get kicked
Oh,
out of the house.
yeah,
It was
that's it.
documenting
Because it
that.
was just like that unlivable in the
Yeah, it was
house.
completely falling
It
apart.
was condemned.
Yeah, and because of the documentary, Jackie O brought it. There we go.
Right.
That's it. And we like fixed up for them. I think Big Edie died pretty soon after, and the lady
Yeah.
was just kind of like taken care of because of the film. So it did lead to something. And I
Yeah.
think it feels like one of them is you're watching them about to leave because the lady is constantly talking about how she needs to get out of there. Like she's spent there for 20 years and she needs to just be in the city somewhere. She doesn't belong there, but it never quite like you assume she said this every day for the last 20 years. Like it
Yeah.
feels like something's about to happen and nothing does ever.
Yeah. It doesn't really go anywhere from what I remember, but
No,
it's
every second is
interesting all the
entertaining.
same. Yeah,
Yeah.
just to hear them how they talk and stuff.
Yeah.
They're just such like performers in front of the camera.
Iconic, definitely. Like
Yeah.
really well known, like deservedly well known in pop culture. I think. I actually
Oh
found out
yeah.
about her from Drag Race,
Mm.
but just one of the most unique ones, I think. Kind of similar to
Yeah.
Capturing the Friedmans, in that it's just a weird collection of home movie footage. You're like,
Yeah,
what's
like
happening?
almost feel like you shouldn't be watching this.
Yeah, just all
But
very
more
strange.
lighthearted.
Yeah, a little bit.
Mm.
That's all mine, I think. That's all my documentaries.
Yeah. The only other one I've got is An Open Secret.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Have you not seen that?
No.
Okay. It's this documentary that everyone on Reddit has pretty much seen, it seems like, and it pretty much looks into the this is such a downer again, but
Okay.
the open secret of the pedophilia ring in Hollywood, basically,
Yeah, no.
which kind of brings everything back round to that whole thing,
Yeah.
because and it was interesting because like the people who they kind of out in the documentary aren't necessarily big names. They're kind of producers and sort of people that you might know of, but aren't like household names.
Yeah.
Except for Bryan Singer, who directed a lot of the X-Men films and recently was fired from the Freddie Mercury biopic,
Oh.
which has Rami Malek playing Freddie Mercury.
Okay.
Supposedly just because he's had a lot of anxiety and stuff about going to work and like I'm not entirely sure, I can't remember, but yeah, he's been fired from that. There's a new director on that film now, and yeah, pretty much all of the it's I don't know, it just seems very much like
Is that
they're
frustrating? Like how?
it's frustrating the way that it's not being talked about. It
Mm.
seems like he's very afraid that soon something is going to come out
Okay.
and he is going to be like the next Harvey Weinstein. It's going to be like that big of a shit
I
show.
don't understand. If there's a whole film about him
Yeah.
being a paedophile, how is that not it coming out?
It's not they don't actually make any accusations in the film.
Oh.
But it's pretty like if you look at his Wikipedia page and look at the sexual abuse allegations, there's like paragraphs of like
Right.
cases where he was accused of like raping a child and things
Yeah.
like that, and like so many of them,
Yeah.
because this whole film is about child actors who were brought to
Right.
these Hollywood parties and pretty much given drugs and stuff,
Yeah.
and stuff happened, and like it seems very clear that soon enough something's going to come out about Bryan Singer and he's going to be finished. And it's
Yeah.
like it's unbelievable that he is still not known that
Yeah.
he is so at least to do with this side of Hollywood.
Yeah. Because so much, again, money, well, like
Yeah.
standing.
Mhm.
There's a pattern here.
Yeah.
Just men getting away with shit.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty insane.
That was again, that's like another one that's kind of like wouldn't exactly recommend it, but I feel like people need to see that because I think it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
An Open Secret is
Okay.
but yeah, I just feel like not enough people.
Josh Hartnett's 17.
Exactly. Just not enough people know it. It's the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I've never seen that recommended anywhere actually.
Yeah.
For some reason.
But all the kind of Reddit comments about like him being fired were just like literally just referencing that. Like
Yeah.
it seems like everyone kind of, at least on the internet, knows about that.
Yeah.
And like
you must if you work in that part of the industry as well. Like it's just another case of that.
yeah.
It's not on the list, but I just remembered it. Tickled is very good.
Oh yeah, Tickled, yeah.
That's another one that starts off as something and then ends as something else. That's probably one of the most unbelievable ones. Probably won't say much about it.
Yeah, it's probably not even. Yeah, it's probably another one just to go into kind of blindly.
Yeah,
but
just watch it. It's
Tickled is very interesting.
Mm.
Like competitive tickling
Yeah.
competitions. Like
Starts there.
yeah, just imagine where that could go.
Yeah, no, don't. Imagine.
Or don't, just watch it.
Close your third eye, watch it. I don't think I have any other recommendations.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much
You're out.
said everything. Yeah,
Okay.
and I probably need to leave quite soon.
Oh,
so yeah. All right, well that'll about do it.
The fourth one?
Huh?
Is that the fourth one?
That's the third one.
Third one done.
Third
Okay.
episode, documentaries done.
Nice.
So next time, we'll probably talk about like Christmas or something.
I guess. Oh
I guess.
yeah, Christmas. I can do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I can do that.
That'll be.
Or like best
That'll be a
of
goof.
2017.
What?
Maybe best of 2017.
The best of 2000. Well,
We can do that.
has there been a lot of good stuff happen in
I've seen a
2017?
lot of dogs.
We have seen a lot of dogs. Yeah. We can talk
Something.
at length about those guys.
Yeah. Like a
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. Maybe. Yeah, at some point.
Okay.
Maybe as like a New Year thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Be special.
Should probably have this conversation off
Great.
mic, but still, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for listening. If you listen this far, and I'll do it.
See you on the next one.
See you on the next one.
See ya.
See ya.